There are women who walk into a room and nothing flashy happens. No noise, no announcement. But somehow the room feels calmer, stronger, safer. That is not coincidence. That is not luck. That is blessing. God does not always bless a woman with wealth, beauty, or an easy life. Sometimes He blesses her with strength that cannot be shaken, love that cannot be broken, and faith that refuses to quit. If you have ever wondered, am I truly blessed? Listen carefully. Let me walk you through 7 beautiful truths that reveal you are a divinely blessed woman. The first key point is that your strength does not shout, it settles. It enters a room before you speak and stays even after you leave. This kind of strength is not built in moments of praise, it is built in seasons where no one clapped for you. You learn to carry yourself when support disappeared. You learn to stand without demanding attention. While the world teaches women to be loud or to be seen, you discovered something deeper. You realize that presence does not need permission. When you walk, there is balance. When you speak, there is weight. And even when you say nothing at all, something about you commands respect. That is not personality. That is a blessing formed through quiet endurance. There were times you wanted to react, to defend, to explain yourself. Moments where your silence was mistaken for weakness. But you knew better. You understood that real power does not chase validation. You watched storms rise around you, and instead of becoming the storm, you became the anchor. While others burned energy proving their worth, you conserved yours by knowing it. That restraint did not come naturally. It came from growth, from reflection, from choosing dignity over drama. A woman who can control her response controls her future. And you learned that lesson early, even when it cost you comfort. Your calm strength was shaped in pressure. It was shaped when life demanded answers you did not have, when responsibilities came before readiness, when expectations were placed on you without instructions. You did not panic. You adapted. You became dependable not because life was kind, but because you refused to fall apart. This is the strength that carries families, builds trust, and holds communities together. It is not flashy. It does not beg for recognition. Yet without it, everything collapses. God often hides His greatest strength inside women who are underestimated. You learned that loud power seeks control, but quiet strength creates safety. People feel it around you. They feel heard, they feel grounded, they feel less anxious. You do not dominate conversations, yet your words stay with people long after the moment passes. You do not rush to fix others, but your presence alone brings clarity. This is rare. This is sacred. Not everyone is trusted with this kind of influence because it requires humility, patience, and emotional intelligence. The ability to stay calm in chaos is not a skill you learn from books. It is a gift refined through experience and guided by faith. Even in moments of anger or disappointment, you choose composure over chaos. That choice is not suppression. It is mastery. You allow yourself to feel deeply, but you do not allow emotions to control your direction. You understand that reacting quickly may feel powerful, but responding wisely builds lasting strength. Many women are taught to either explode or disappear. You choose a third path. You choose steadiness. That steadiness protects your peace and preserves your dignity. It turns trials into lessons and pressure into wisdom. This kind of strength does not fade with age or circumstances. It grows. It deepens. It becomes more refined with time. While external power depends on position or approval, your strength is rooted in identity. You know who you are even when life tries to rename you. You do not collapse when plans change or when people leave. You adjust without losing yourself. That ability to remain whole in a world that constantly pulls women apart is not accidental. It is evidence of divine favor working quietly within you, shaping you into someone unshakable, grounded, and deeply blessed. The second key point is that your heart remained open in a world that gave you every reason to close it. You trusted people who did not protect that trust. You gave love where effort was not returned. You showed up emotionally, fully, honestly, and sometimes that sincerity was taken for granted. Yet even after disappointment, something within you refused to become bitter. You did not let pain turn into poison. That choice was not naive. It was brave. It takes far more courage to stay soft in a hard world than to build walls and call them strength. There were moments when loving again felt dangerous. When your mind reminded you of past wounds and tried to keep you safe by keeping you distant. You felt that internal conflict deeply. Part of you wanted to guard your heart, and part of you refused to live numb. You understood that love is a risk, but you also understood that fear is a prison. So you chose to love with awareness, not blindness. You became wiser, not colder. That balance is rare. It shows maturity that only comes from experience and reflection. You learned that forgiveness is not approval of what hurt you, but freedom from carrying it forever. You stopped replaying old conversations in your head. You stopped waiting for apologies that might never come. Not because the pain did not matter, but because your peace mattered more. That decision took time. It took honesty with yourself. It took strength to sit with your emotions instead of escaping them. When you released resentment, you did not lose your power. You reclaimed it. Your ability to love deeply after being hurt is not about ignoring red flags. It is about recognizing that one person's failure does not define the entire world. You refuse to punish new people for old mistakes. You refuse to shrink your heart just to feel safer. Instead, you raised your standards while keeping your compassion. That is growth. That is wisdom. You now love with clarity, boundaries, and intention, but you still love fully. That combination is not common. It reflects a heart that has healed without hardening. There were days when you questioned yourself, when you wondered if loving so much was a weakness, when you thought maybe caring less would make life easier. But deep down, you knew that becoming indifferent would cost you more than it would save you. You understood that your ability to love is part of who you are, not a flaw to fix. So instead of changing your nature, you learned how to protect it. You chose discernment over distance. You chose self-respect over self-denial. This depth of love is a responsibility as much as it is a blessing. Not everyone is trusted with such emotional capacity because it requires strength to hold it without being consumed by it. You carry love with accountability, with self-awareness, with faith that goodness still exists. Even after disappointment, you believe in connection, in healing, in second chances where they are earned. That kind of love does not come from optimism alone, it comes from resilience. It is evidence of a woman who has been tested, refined, and entrusted with a heart strong enough to love again without losing herself. The third key point is that even when your life feels uncertain, you are not directionless. There are moments when the path ahead looks unclear, when answers refuse to show up on time, and yet you still move forward with a strange sense of calm. Not because you have everything figured out, but because something within you keeps whispering, take this step. You have learned to trust that inner nudge. It does not shout. It does not rush you. It simply guides you. And more often than not, when you look back, you realize that quiet guidance saved you from paths that would have cost you your peace. There were crossroads where logic alone was not enough. On paper, one choice looked safe, comfortable, predictable, but deep inside, it felt wrong. Another choice felt risky, unfamiliar, even frightening, yet something about it felt true. You listened to that feeling. Even when you could not explain it to anyone else, people questioned you. Some doubted you. But you followed what felt aligned rather than what looked impressive. That decision required courage. It required faith in something beyond visible proof. And time has shown you that listening to that inner direction often leads you exactly where you need to be. You have noticed that guidance often appears in unexpected ways. Through a conversation that stays with you longer than it should. Through a delay that turns out to be protection. Through a door that closes so firmly that you are forced to look elsewhere. At first, these moments felt frustrating. You wondered why things were not working out the way you planned. But slowly, patterns began to emerge. The wrong opportunities fell away. The wrong people drifted out. What remained was clarity, not instant clarity, but gradual understanding. You began to see that what you once called obstacles were actually redirections. This sense of being guided has also taught you patience. You no longer panic when everything does not make sense immediately. You have learned that not all answers arrive at once. Some truths unfold step by step, only when you are ready to handle them. Instead of forcing outcomes, you allow things to develop in their own time. That patience did not come easily. It came from experience, from rushing before and realizing the cost of moving without alignment. Now you wait without stagnating and move without rushing. That balance is rare and deeply powerful. You have also become more aware of your intuition. You can sense when something is off, even if you cannot explain why. You can feel when a situation is draining your energy or when a person's words do not match their intentions. This awareness is not suspicion, it is discernment. You do not act on every feeling, but you do not ignore them either. You pay attention, you reflect, you choose carefully. That sensitivity protects you from unnecessary pain and leads you toward environments where you can grow without constantly defending yourself. Living with this sense of guidance does not mean life is easy. You still face doubt. You still experience moments of confusion. But underneath it all, there is trust. Trust that even if you do not see the full picture, you are not walking alone. You believe that each step has meaning, even the ones that feel uncertain. That belief steadies you when plans fall apart and expectations change. It keeps you moving forward without fear controlling your decisions. This quiet trust, this ability to walk forward without needing every answer, reflects a life being shaped by wisdom, alignment, and a higher sense of purpose. The fourth key point is that when life tried to break you, it unknowingly trained you. You did not escape hardship. You walked straight through it. There were seasons where everything felt heavy at once, where problems stacked faster than solutions, and where rest felt like a luxury you could not afford. You felt the pressure in your body, in your thoughts, in your spirit. And yet, something inside you refused to collapse. You did not come out unchanged, but you came out stronger, wiser, and more grounded. Growth did not arrive gently for you. It arrived through challenge, and you met it head on. There were moments when breaking would have been understandable. When anyone else would have said, "This is too much," you felt exhaustion that sleep could not fix. You carried responsibilities while processing pain. You smiled while holding yourself together from the inside. But instead of letting hardship define you, you let it shape you. You learned what truly matters. You learned what you can survive. You learned who shows up when things fall apart. Each struggle stripped away illusions and left behind clarity. That clarity became your strength. You did not grow because life was fair. You grew because you adapted. You learned to adjust without losing your values. When circumstances changed, you changed your approach. Not your character. You became resourceful. You became resilient. You learned to make something out of very little. That ability does not come from comfort. It comes from necessity. And necessity trained you to stand tall even when the ground beneath you felt unstable. You did not wait for perfect conditions to become strong. You became strong in imperfect ones. Pain taught you lessons that success never could. It taught you empathy. It taught you patience. It taught you how to sit with discomfort without running from it. You stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What is this teaching me?" That shift changed everything. Instead of feeling punished by life, you began to feel prepared by it. You realized that every challenge carried information, and you became someone who learns quickly. That mindset turned setbacks into stepping stones. You also learned how to rebuild yourself quietly. You did not announce your healing. You did not seek sympathy. You worked on yourself when no one was watching. You adjusted your habits. You changed your thinking. You set boundaries where there were none before. You learned when to hold on and when to let go. The woman you became was not created overnight. She was built piece by piece through reflection, honesty, and persistence. That kind of growth lasts because it is rooted in experience, not motivation. Now, when difficulties appear, they do not intimidate you the way they once did. You respect challenges, but you no longer fear them. You know your capacity. You know your resilience. You know that even if things fall apart again, you will not. That confidence is quiet but unshakable. It does not come from arrogance, it comes from survival, from proof, from knowing that you have faced enough to trust yourself completely. This ability to grow through hardship instead of being destroyed by it is not common. It is the mark of a woman whose strength was forged, refined, and solidified under pressure. The fifth key point is that you see people before you judge them. Where others rush to label, you pause to understand. You recognize that behavior is often a language spoken by pain, fear, or unmet needs. This awareness did not come from theory. It came from living, from observing, from being misunderstood yourself. You know how heavy it feels to be reduced to a single mistake, so you choose not to do that to others. This does not mean you excuse harmful actions. It means you look deeper before forming conclusions. That depth of perception is rare, and it changes the way people experience you. You have learned to listen beyond words. You notice tone, pauses, shifts in energy. You sense when someone is smiling but not okay. You recognize when silence is louder than speech. This sensitivity is not accidental. It is the result of emotional awareness developed through your own challenges. You learn to read between the lines because at some point, no one read yours. That experience sharpened your empathy. It taught you that not everything is visible, and not everyone has the language to explain their pain. So you listen patiently, without rushing to fix or judge. Your empathy does not make you naive. You are not blind to manipulation or disrespect. You simply refuse to let cynicism define you. You understand that protecting your heart does not require hardening it. You set boundaries without cruelty. You walk away without hatred. You hold people accountable without shaming them. That balance is powerful. It allows you to remain compassionate while still honoring your self-respect. Many confuse empathy with weakness. In reality, it requires strength to stay kind in a world that constantly offers reasons not to be. You also understand that everyone is fighting battles you cannot see. That awareness softens your reactions. It slows you down. Instead of responding impulsively, you reflect. Instead of assuming intent, you seek context. This does not mean you tolerate behavior that drains you. It means you respond with clarity rather than emotion. You choose peace over proving a point. That choice often surprises people because it reflects inner stability. You are not easily provoked because you are not easily shaken. Your ability to empathize also makes you a safe presence. People open up to without planning to. They share things they have not said out loud before, not because you demand it, but because they feel seen. You do not interrupt their pain with advice. You do not minimize their experiences. You simply allow them to be heard. That kind of presence is healing. It reminds people that they are not alone. It reminds them that their feelings matter. Not everyone is trusted with that role because it carries responsibility as much as compassion. This way of moving through the world shapes your relationships and your decisions. You choose depth over drama. You choose understanding over assumptions. You choose growth over ego. Your empathy guides you, but it does not control you. It informs your choices without exhausting you. You know when to step in and when to step back. You know when to offer support and when to protect your energy. This level of emotional intelligence is not common. It reflects a heart that has been refined by experience and strengthened by awareness, capable of holding compassion without losing itself. The sixth key point is that your conscience is louder than convenience. When faced with a choice between what feels easy and what feels right, something inside you refuses to stay silent. Even when no one is watching, even when there is no reward, you feel an inner pull toward integrity. It is not dramatic, it is steady. You cannot ignore it because ignoring it costs you peace. You may hesitate, you may struggle, but eventually, you choose alignment over shortcuts. That inner guidance is not pressure, it is clarity, and it shapes the way you live. There are moments when doing the right thing felt unfair, when honesty cost you opportunities, when staying true meant standing alone. You saw others move ahead by bending values, by choosing comfort over character, and for a moment, you wondered if integrity was a disadvantage. But every time you tried to compromise who you are, even slightly, your spirit resisted. Something felt off, restless, heavy. That discomfort taught you an important lesson. Success that costs you your self-respect is too expensive. So you chose the harder road, not because it was praised, but because it allowed you to sleep in peace. You have learned that integrity is not about perfection. It is about consistency. About choosing truth even when it exposes you. About taking responsibility instead of shifting blame. About admitting mistakes instead of hiding them. You do not pretend to be flawless. You aim to be honest. That honesty builds trust. Not just with others, but with yourself. Over time, you became someone who believes her own word. That self-trust is powerful. It creates confidence that is not dependent on approval or validation. This inner peace you feel after choosing what is right is not relief from pressure. It is alignment. It is the feeling of being in harmony with your values. Even when the outcome is uncomfortable, your heart remains settled. You may feel disappointment, loss, or frustration, but not regret. That difference matters. Regret drains you. Alignment strengthens you. You have experienced both, and you know which one you can live with. So you continue to choose the path that keeps your spirit light, even if it makes your journey heavier for a while. You have also noticed that people may not always understand your choices. Some see your refusal to compromise as stubbornness. Others see your honesty as unnecessary. But you are not driven by external applause. You are guided by internal peace. You understand that being respected is more valuable than being liked. Over time, those who matter learn to trust you. They know where you stand. They know you are consistent. That reliability becomes your quiet reputation, built slowly through repeated acts of integrity. Living this way has shaped your character deeply. You do not fear being alone if it means being true. You do not chase outcomes that require you to abandon yourself. You understand that peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of alignment. That understanding anchors you when life becomes noisy and opinions become loud. You remain grounded because your values are clear, This ability to choose what is right, even when it is difficult, reflects a strength that cannot be taught easily. It grows from conviction, self-awareness, and a deep respect for the life you are building. The seventh key point is that you influence people without performing for them. You do not wake up trying to inspire, impress, or convince anyone. You simply live in alignment with who you are, and that authenticity speaks louder than effort ever could. People notice how you handle pressure, how you treat others when there is nothing to gain, how you remain grounded when situations become chaotic. Your life itself becomes the message, not because it is perfect, but because it is honest. That honesty creates a quiet authority that draws people in. You have seen it happen without planning it. Someone tells you that a conversation with you changed the way they think. Someone says they felt calmer just being around you. Someone starts making better choices after watching how you handle yours. You did not give a speech. You did not offer advice unless asked. You simply showed up as yourself. That is influence in its purest form. It is not forced. It is felt. And because it is felt, it lasts longer than words spoken with intention. This kind of inspiration comes from consistency. You are the same person in private as you are in public. Your values do not shift depending on the audience. People sense that stability. In a world where many perform different versions of themselves, your consistency feels refreshing. It builds trust. It makes people feel safe. They know what to expect from you, not because you are predictable, but because you are principled. That reliability becomes a foundation others lean on, often without realizing why they feel drawn to you. You also inspire because you are not afraid to be real about your struggles. You do not pretend that life has been easy or that you have all the answers. When you speak, there is no superiority in your tone. There is understanding. You acknowledge pain without glorifying it. You share lessons without presenting yourself as flawless. That balance makes your words believable. People do not feel talked down to. They feel understood. They see possibility in you because you do not hide the process it took to grow. Your presence has a grounding effect because you listen more than you speak. When others are around you, they feel seen rather than judged. You do not rush to correct them or compete with their experiences. You allow space for them to think, to reflect, to be honest. That space is rare. It allows people to reconnect with themselves. Often, inspiration does not come from being told what to do, but from being reminded of what is already possible. You provide that reminder simply by how you show up. This influence does not inflate your ego because you never sought it. You are not attached to being admired. You are focused on being aligned. That is why your impact remains pure. You do not manipulate emotions or seek loyalty. You respect people's freedom to choose their own path. And paradoxically, that respect makes your influence stronger. People are drawn to those who do not need to control them. Your life quietly gives permission to others to be better, braver, and more honest. That kind of inspiration cannot be manufactured. It emerges naturally from a life lived with integrity, awareness, and quiet confidence. The eighth key point is that when fear shows up, it does not get the final word in your life. You feel fear like everyone else. You feel the uncertainty, the risk, the weight of the unknown. But fear does not drive your decisions. You acknowledge it, then you look beyond it. Something deeper steadies you. When things fall apart, you do not immediately panic. You pause, you breathe, you trust. Not because you are unaware of danger, but because you believe that fear is information, not instruction. That belief changes everything about how you move through life. There have been moments when anxiety tried to rush you into choices you were not ready to make. Moments when worry painted the future darker than it truly was. You noticed how fear speaks in urgency, how it demands control, how it convinces you that everything depends on immediate action. But you learned to slow down instead of speeding up. You learned that clarity rarely comes from panic. In those moments, you leaned into trust. You reminded yourself that you have survived uncertainty before. That memory became fuel. It allowed you to act with faith rather than impulse. Your trust is not blind optimism, it is built on experience. You have seen things work out in ways you could not predict. You have watched doors close that later made sense. You have lived through moments you once thought would break you. That history gives you perspective. So when fear says, "This is the end," you remember all the times it was wrong. You remember that outcomes are not always visible at the beginning. That remembrance anchors you. It gives you the courage to take the next step, even when the full staircase is not in view. You also understand that trusting does not mean doing nothing. It means doing what you can without surrendering to worry. You take responsibility for your actions, but you release the obsession with control. You plan, but you do not panic when plans change. You prepare, but you do not cling. That balance keeps you grounded. It allows you to move forward with effort while letting go of unnecessary stress. You know that carrying everything on your shoulders is not strength. Knowing when to release is. When fear whispers worst-case scenarios, you respond with faith-based thinking. You ask yourself better questions. Instead of asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" you ask, "What if I am supported through this?" That shift may seem small, but it changes your emotional state completely. It opens space for solutions. It invites calm. You begin to see options instead of obstacles. This mental discipline protects your peace. It keeps fear from spiraling into paralysis. Over time, this practice becomes instinctive. Trust becomes your default response. Living this way reshapes your inner world. You are not constantly bracing for disaster. You are not consumed by what could go wrong. You are present. You are steady. Even when life is uncertain, your heart remains anchored. That anchoring allows you to show up fully, to love deeply, to act boldly. Fear no longer defines your limits. Trust defines your direction. This deep-rooted reliance on faith over panic reflects a woman who understands that control is limited, but guidance is constant, and that understanding gives her a strength that cannot be shaken. If you listened closely to these truths and felt something stir within you, it is because blessing is not always loud or obvious. It does not always arrive wrapped in comfort or ease. Sometimes it shows up as strength that kept you standing, love that refused to harden, guidance that carried you through confusion, growth that rose from pain, empathy that softened your heart, integrity that protected your peace, influence that flowed naturally, and faith that silenced fear. A woman blessed by God is not untouched by struggle. She is shaped by it. She is not spared from storms. She is strengthened by them. Her life becomes proof that grace does not remove challenges, it gives meaning to them. And as she walks forward, steady and aware, she becomes a quiet reminder to the world that true blessing is not about what you have, but about who you become. If this message found you at the right moment, carry it with you. Let it remind you that you are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being formed, and everything that has shaped you so far is preparing you for what is coming next.